Hey guys, and welcome to the Working Money Channel. So never invest more than you can afford to lose. That's what a lot of us have been saying since the beginning. Whether it's cryptocurrency or any other type of investment, you always want to make sure you're protected. You don't want to be mortgaging the house, let's say, to buy XRP. But here's the reality of it. Locking away investment money and losing investment money are two very, very different things. Now, this is not to say that anything is guaranteed. Cryptocurrency could realistically go to zero tomorrow, and you and I would be SOL. But for investments, I like to think of it this way. Instead of saying how much can you afford to lose, how much can you afford to lock away for a long period of time? Because realistically, that's how you should be looking at your investments. Now, if they do go to zero tomorrow, you also shouldn't be scrounging, homeless, not able to pay your bills. So there is that part of it. But realistically, guys, investments are meant to be locked away. And so a lot of people have been asking me this question, and I figured today would be a good day to do a video on this. So how much XRP can I afford based on realistically what I should be saving and what I make? So this is going to be a bit of a case study video. Some math examples here for those of you guys who want to know. Now, I looked at a few articles on the internet and I found this blog here. It's Personal Finance and Money. And some people say some interesting things here. I actually was looking at a few things and this one actually seemed to make the most sense to me. So I'm going to use an example from this over here. So now, first of all, if you are in debt, I'd advise that you pay off your debt first. Do not be buying XRP if you have, let's say, high credit card bills or any other kind of high interest debt. Now, mortgage debt, that is a different story. A lot of financial advisors, which I am not, by the way, but a lot of financial advisors will tell you that your mortgage debt is a separate type of debt, but high interest debt like credit card bills and any other high interest payments that you have to make monthly, you should always pay those off first before investing into the stock market, into cryptocurrencies, or any other investment really. Let's talk about the first method here. So if you're not paying off high interest debt, what you can do is add all your monthly expenses, so your food, gas, hydro, phone, etc., and make sure you have 3 to 6 months saved up just in case. Now, they say 3 to 6 months. They give you a range here because for somebody, for example, who has a steady job, maybe you're not too worried about your income, you could probably get away with having 3 months salary saved up. So for an insecure job, maybe if you're a freelancer, or if your boss or your company is cutting back, it's good to have 6 months saved up. So I've given an example here. So let's say you make $60,000 a year. And guys, I know everybody's different. I know not everybody makes $60,000. I know some of you guys probably work part-time. Some of you people probably live with your folks. Some of you have a lot of expenses, not a lot of expenses. It's so hard to pinpoint everybody's situation. So I'm just throwing this out there, okay? You make $60,000 a year and you have $4,000 a month in expenses, including tax, because don't forget you always have to pay your tax, okay? So 3 to 6 months of savings would make a $12,000 to about $24,000 cushion. So from your $60,000 a year, you should have saved up, depending on where you're at in your life, depending on your job security, all that stuff, between $12,000 and $24,000 saved in your bank account liquid that you don't touch for investments. Okay, now once you have that amount saved, you can spend as much on XRP as you want. Again, guys, this is not financial advice. I'd advise that you do your own research because these are your hard-earned dollars and you should be spending your hard-earned dollars or investing your hard-earned dollars the way you see fit based on decisions you've made from your research. I'm just giving you some for instances. So once you have the $12,000 to $24,000 saved up in your account, what can you afford to lock away in investments, whether it takes 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Basically, you might not be seeing that money for a long time. Not to say that you're going to lose that money, but it's money that you can afford to lock away for a long period of time. Well, at $4,000 a month, making $60,000 a year, you should be able to play with at the end of the year $12,000. Okay, you can put $12,000 into investments. Now, you might also want to think about a 5% buffer for emergencies because you don't want to lock everything away just in case there is an emergency. Again, these numbers will cover you for that a little bit, but let's say you lose your job. In the worst case scenario, you lose your job. It's been 6 months until you find a new one. You're going to blow through this entire $24,000. But then on top of that, your car breaks down. You didn't think that you'd have to pay another $1,500 or $2,000 to repair your car. So again, a little bit of buffer doesn't hurt. But I'm just kind of giving you guys a for instance here. So $12,000 in investment per year. The benefit of this is that if you had the 12 grand, so for example, let's say you had 36 grand in your bank account and you know you're covered for the 6 months at 24,000 and then you have that extra 12,000. The benefit of this is that you can put that lump sum payment down when you know that the market is very low. So a few months ago, we saw XRP trading at 29 cents. And so whatever the price is now, so long as it's under, I feel like a lot of people are thinking to themselves, if XRP is under $1, it's still a really good price to buy. I agree with that. I see the long-term price of XRP going really high, double digits in the near-ish future. I could see triple digits a few years on from that, but ultimately you want to leverage your money as much as possible. So the lower you can purchase XRP, obviously the better. And that's the benefit of method number one. You can put all 12,000 down when XRP is very low. Now let's look at method number two. And so I know a lot of people have talked about this, paying in every month. So if you have a fairly steady job and you know what your expenses are each month, but you don't feel comfortable with a lump sum, you can figure out what you feel comfortable paying per month. So for example, if you make $60,000 a year and your expenses are $4,000 a month, so we're keeping the same numbers here, you make $5,000 a month. That's what you make, and your expenses are $4,000. So what do you have left over? $1,000 a month after all your expenses are paid off. Now, again, you might want to keep a little bit buffer for emergencies, but ultimately you have $1,000 liquid. I don't know if you've added entertainment in this or not, but you have $1,000 liquid to either keep in your savings account, getting you 1.5%, or putting into investments, potentially garnering you way more on your investment than a measly 1 or 2%. And you can do this monthly, right? You can put $1,000 a month into XRP, for example. And I know a lot of people have been doing that, cost averaging down. It's a very kind of simple way to wrap your head around. Whatever you can afford at the end of the month, throw it into XRP. But the downside to this is that you are cost averaging down. Now, cost averaging down is better than cost averaging up, for example, but you don't have that benefit as in method number one of waiting for the market to be really, really low and then picking a price point and getting in on a dip. What you'd be doing is you would just be putting in every month and you would be accumulating XRP. It's way better to be doing it this way than on the upswing. So, 1 month it's at 35 cents and the next month 45, the next month 55, 65, so on and so forth. You'd be getting less XRP. Cost averaging down was a really good method in 2018 when the market kept seeing new lows, lower lows, up until December when we pretty much hit rock bottom, guys. Nevertheless, this is another method you can use. So technically it is what you can afford to lock away after expenses, after an emergency, slush fund, right? It's what you can afford to lock away for a long-ish period of time. Now, method number three, which some people don't even think of. How much have you saved by the end of the year? And I didn't give any numbers, but ultimately you have to realize that if you're serious about saving for your future or for your family's future or anything like that, you have to know how much you make in a year and you have to know how much you have at the end of the year. So ultimately, what have you spent? If you are in debt, refer to point number one. If you have been spending more than you're making, guys, pay that debt off first, okay? Sorry. I'm getting overexcited here. So method number three, how much have you saved by the end of the year? Well, whatever that number is, you can realistically put, I'd say, between 20 and 30% into your savings, which would leave you putting 70 to 80% approximately into investments of the money that you have saved after the year is done and you've paid all your expenses. So I would say, have 20 to 30% liquid and then 70 to 80% in your investments. Guys, this ultimately, though, depends on how old you are and how much you make. So let's say you are more on the senior citizen end of things. I would start having more money liquid and less in investments. investments. If you are younger, you are, just by sheer numbers and the amount of time you still have left on this planet, you can probably afford to put more in your investments, because realistically, if you're 25 years old, you can see 2 or 3 more stock or crypto runs and crashes, and by the time you're retired, you'll probably still be up on your investment. Can't say the same for somebody who may be 75. I don't want to be rude or anything like that. That is just the reality of it. And guys, this also depends on how much you make. So obviously, if you make more money, you could probably get away with putting more in investments. And if you make less money, you should probably be putting more in your savings account for a rainy day. But again, this is what you can afford to lock away, just depending on your situation. And so finally, method number 4. Method number 4. And I love this method. I already did a video on this method when I first started the channel. And guys, I'm going to link it up here in the corner if you guys haven't seen it. I think I've probably linked it to 3 other of my videos, because I always mention it. I'll always go back to it. It was from last summer, but it still rings true today. Method number 4, sell random items that you do not need. How many of you guys have an old iPhone kicking around, maybe last year's model or 2 years ago? You can get a couple $100 for that, at least, maybe more. So, sell things on Craigslist, Kijiji online, at flea markets, wherever you have to, in order to make a little extra money. And then that money you can totally afford to lock away into XRP. It was pretty much just sitting in a drawer collecting dust anyway. So think of it as free money almost, money that you already spent, you use the item, and now that item's just been kicking around the house. Guys, PlayStations, old kitchen appliances, camping gear that you may have thought you were going to use, bicycles. There's so many things that are probably around your home that you do not need, that have been collecting dust. Hip hip hooray for consumerism, right? Geez, I don't need all that stuff. Sell it, get rid of it. It's better invested in XRP anyway. So guys, those are the 4 methods that I think could really help you kind of gauge how much you can afford to lock away into investments. Again, though, this is not financial advice. This is just me telling you what I would do. You should always do your own research before making financial decisions. Anyways, that's just my opinion, but I want to hear what you guys think. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video if you like the content I'm providing. I always love hearing your comments. See you in the next one, guys.